The views and opinions expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of the staff and management of Salem Media of Hawaii.
Welcome to Hawaii Money Resource with financial advisor Marko Mijuskovic.
Marko Mijuskovic is registered representative and financial advisor of Park Avenue Securities LLC, 7 Hanover Square, New York, 10004, and at Strategy Partners, 677 Ala Moana Boulevard, Suite 720, Honolulu, Hawaii, 96813. This show is for informational purposes only. Individual risk tolerance and investment objectives must be reviewed prior to making any specific recommendations.
And now your host, Marko Mijuskovic.
Welcome back. You're listening to Hawaii Money Resource. My name is Marko Mijuskovic, and you are listening Business Exit Planning edition of Hawaii Money Resource. Hawaii Money Resource every week, Wednesday, 5 to 6 p.m. You can hear us online at hawaiimoneyresource.com, or you can stream it on your radio at 760 KGU AM frequency. Today we have a very special edition of Hawaii Money Resource. Why? Because we are talking about a business exit planning. We have a business exit planning, and I'm not by myself in the studio. Actually, I have my returning co-hosts. I have a whole business exit advisory board in studio, and it's going to be a rocking radio show. Why? Because we have so many good minds in the studio, and they're going to be sharing their expertise. So let me introduce them before I go in. First, I would like to welcome back Ethan Lee. Ethan is from Pacific Business Valuation. He's a business valuator. Ethan, welcome back.
Thanks, Marko. Good to be back.
Awesome. We have Charles Au, managing partner from ECA LLP. He's a CPA by trade. Charles, welcome back. I didn't see you for a while.
Hey, Marko. Thank you for having me.
And finally, we have Scott Settle. Scott is the attorney from Settle-Meyer Law Firm, managing principal. Scott, welcome back.
Hi, Marko. Thanks for having me.
Perfect. Guys, I'm really happy to see you all in studio. We did this, I think, last year. We did our business exit planning advisory board. We did quite a few seminars, and we tried to bring the importance of business exit planning and just business planning in general to our community here in Hawaii. And, of course, today we're going to spend some time talking about the importance of a couple of things. First of all, non-disclosure agreements, buy and sell agreements, intellectual property, Goodwill, and so on and so forth. But before we dive in, I would like to remind everybody that listening to our show that you can find us online at hawaiimoneyresource.com, hawaiimoneyresource.com, and also on our Business Exit Planning Hawaii.com website. Business Exit Planning Hawaii.com is a website just dedicated to business owners and their path to the business exit. Anyway, so before we go in and talk about all these good topics that everybody in a business community talks about it, what is new? Ethan, what is new in business valuation world?
Well, since we last met, I think we've had a lot more of the business transition planning valuation engagements. I think there's a definite uptick in it, and we see more and more baby boomer business owners that are ready to make the transition.
I know there is a new proposition in law changes coming up end of the year. Maybe you should quickly touch up on the discounts and maybe going away discounts.
Yeah, the IRS has recently proposed some regulation changes to a code section 2704, which currently authorizes discounts for minority ownership interests, so a less than 50% ownership interest in a business. And the IRS is proposing that for any family-related businesses that there wouldn't be certain discounts allowed for any transfers or transitions, any sale of those minority interests.
Because this is a proposal, it's not 100%.
Final,
It's not final. What do you think about it?
They're going to have a public comment period on December 1st, and they could go into effect as soon as January 1st, 2017. So it's up in the air. It's unknown at this point.
What is your humble opinion?
My professional opinion is that the IRS is attempting to redefine fair market value, and I don't know if they'll succeed at it.
Who will stop them? Who is
Well, I
lobbying out there to stop?
I know that the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants is advocating for the code section to remain as it is. And I know there's other professional organizations that are doing the same. I'm not sure if they'll succeed, but there's going to be a lot of noise on December 1st.
One thing for sure is a lot of businesses will be affected, especially here in Hawaii, because we have a lot of family-owned businesses. Maybe we will do a special separate radio show just for that, maybe before or maybe after, if the rulings come true. Thank you for the update. Charles, what's new in a CPA world? I know you guys are like scrambling. People are not giving you the documents, and you cannot file because of that. So tell me the problems you're dealing on a daily basis.
Sure, Marko. Now's a good time for us. We're busy getting ready to finish up the filings for the prior year, and that's an important time for us. It's important for our clients to know that they've got to keep good records and keep things together so that we can file on time. Compliance is an important issue for us. In addition to that, we are seeing a lot of planning going forward. To Ethan's point, we need to do some planning around transferring shares and things like that. So we're seeing that our clients are looking to move forward with certain transactions given the timing of the proposed law.
So this is mostly for the clients who are in that. Do you see the difference between internal transfer and external transfer, or just planning in general? What are you seeing?
We're seeing a lot of planning in general, but specifically because of Hawaii and the internal transfers, there's a lot of, for our clients, movement within the family organization, and so this is an important time for them.
Perfect. We're going to talk more about it. Finally, Scott, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Marko.
I know that pretty much you got bombarded weekly or daily with the people asking you about all kind of different business agreements, and usually they come to you when they have a problem. So what is the update in your respective field?
Well, I think not much change in that regard. I think a lot of folks are still not seeing business planning as a tool quite yet, and so they'll come to see me after there's already a problem. I think we're still trying to get the word out there that how important it is to plan ahead, so that we can help solve and avoid problems in the future, as opposed to trying to address them and be reactive once they've occurred.
Perfect. I appreciate your guys' input. Why don't we start with the beginning, right? People come to one of us usually, and they usually come with the idea, and they say, well, you know what, I'm not getting older, I want to get out. And then what? They come to us, they ask us, what should we do, right? And then first thing we do is what? We ask them when they want to get out, right? And they say, well, 5 years, 3 years, 2 years, yesterday, whatever they tell us. And then we start putting the pieces together and see what will be the best bet for them to take. In that position, like usually what we at least advise our clients is to find out the value. What is the financial gap between the business and their personal side? So Ethan, like that comes to you. So you are right up front, and why people still are reluctant to do the business valuation on the beginning versus on the end when they're about to sell.
Well, I think on our end, the good news is that they aren't as reluctant anymore. I think people are
Did this show helped out? People realize? Okay,
yeah,
good.
I think they're starting to realize that, hey, I've got this big potential asset, but I have no idea what it's worth. And it may be late in the game. They might have, okay, I'm ready to sell this year. I'm ready to sell right now. I need to know what it's worth, but they're wanting to know up front what it is worth. So, but similar concern as to what Scott expressed, they're still not planning far enough in advance. And I think that we have enough over the past year. I think we've had some mutual clients now that we can probably share a few experiences.
Few experience, and I agree with it. And Charles, usually you are the most trusted advisor, and usually you're the one who first get the info or message that they're about to get out of the business in sooner or later. So what do you do first? Like, what is your initial reaction? How do you approach that? Because this is like opening the whole another ball of wax when it comes to the tax planning and business planning in general.
Sure, Marko. The tax planning comes in near the end. It's after you decide on how much and terms and conditions. There are some tax planning on that. We believe, though, that it's important to go in strong, is to do the analysis ahead of time. And so we're trying to stress with our clients is do the planning ahead of time before you need to exit. So getting ahead, talking to you, talking to Ethan and Scott is important. If you build it right, then you can exit it smoothly.
Scott, I know that part of the preparation is very important for clients to go through the legal audit. What do you suggest that they should do when it comes to the legal audits?
Well, I think it's important for business owners to understand what their governing documents say and understand where their weaknesses are. A lot of businesses, and right now, for our last couple of years, for example, a lot of deal flow in real estate, development, construction, et cetera. A lot of folks are just need to get their documents formed, get into business right away, and don't really think about what the documents say as long as they have a company up and running. And they'll find themselves a few years down the line with documents that really aren't applicable to their business, don't take into account how many partners there are or how they might exit in the future, how they would control that business. So it's real important to understand that, and it can be early, it can be late, but there's always a good time while there's no dispute going on to try to solve those problems and plan for how to address them. And then I think the other thing we chatted about a little bit before we started today was understanding not just what your physical assets are, but understanding what intellectual property or other value there is in your business and how to account for that and value that.
So what will be your word of wisdom, like when if someone is fortunate enough or lucky enough to talk to you first, like what will be your word of wisdom before they dive into that project? And you're right, they're kind of like, oh my God, deal is happening, I just need to have some documents ready, I need to form the LLC, something quick, let me copy my last documents from the last year, let me download some buy and sell agreement or article of organization from the internet and just change the name of the company.
Yeah, I think it's important that and it doesn't have to take a long period of time to plan, but I think it's important for us to sit with them and explain to them some of the main pitfalls or risks and areas that they can plan around in advance without brain damage, but with some planning. Talking to folks like you, to Ethan and to Charles, and understanding how tax laws work, how valuation works, how they can implement various insurance policies or other things to preserve value, build value. That can happen relatively quick, but it's so important to plan and do that up front.
Perfect. You're listening to Hawaii Money Resource. We have a business exit planning edition of Hawaii Money Resource, and we do have a business exit planning advisory board right here in the studio today. We have Ethan Lee, Pacific Business Valuation. We have Scott Settle from Settlemeyer, a law firm. And we have Charles Alf from ECA, LLP. And, of course, myself, Marko Mijuskovic, Senior Partner at Wealth Strategy Partners. You're listening to Hawaii Money Resource. Let's take a quick break. Once we come back from the break, we're going to dive in more. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
.760 KGU.
Part of the Wall Street Business Network.
Dad is a verb, like catch and hug and listen. It's not just something you are, it's something you do, like laugh and read and play. A message from the National Fatherhood Initiative. Have you been a dad today?
My grades were bad. I would get D's and C's.
I appeared to be doing good at my school life, but if you would see me at home, it would have been a completely different story.
I mean, it was just rough focusing on school when your mother is somebody you have to take care of. It got worse and worse and worse throughout the years.
There are students who need somebody.
They can trust someone, and it could be the first person they've ever trusted in their life.
Communities in Schools is lowering America's dropout rate by helping more than 1.3 million kids every year get whatever they need to succeed in school.
If something was going on at home, we would go just stop by Miss Liberty's office and talk to her.
Communities in Schools vouched for me when everyone else had lost hope.
You can help change the picture of education right here in your community and across the nation. Visit communitiesInschools.org.
I hear people say we can't save every kid, but I think that we can.
Once upon a time, there was a business owner who worked hard and watched his company flourish. Then came the time to sell his company and retire in Palm Beach. But the path to his happily ever after was full of pitfalls and monstrous taxes. Whatever was he to do?
It's not a fairy tale. and the wrong strategy can deprive you of a storybook ending. I'm Marko Mijuskovic, and I know about business valuation. I'm also a specialist in business exit, asset protection, and estate planning. Visit my website, businessexitplanninghawaii.com, and I promise you'll find more than just a trail of breadcrumbs.
BusinessExitPlanningHawaii.com is an online resource designed to help you prepare for the final stage of your business's life cycle. At BusinessExitPlanningHawaii.com, you'll have no trouble at all finding workshops, podcasts, videos, articles, and more. Your happily ever after is just a click away at BusinessExitPlanningHawaii.com.
Achieving personal financial success can be complicated. Marko Mijuskovic can make it simpler. That's something very good to know in a world where the wrong financial decisions can be all too costly. Marko Mijuskovic, Vice President of Wealth Strategy Partners, has been helping people in Hawaii successfully organize and plan their finances for years. Marko uses an holistic approach to help you balance your current financial obligations as well as your future concerns. And he does this while keeping things simple. Organizing your finances is serious business, but it doesn't have to be complicated. Find out how Marko can help you make smart, informed decisions about your financial future. Call him and schedule your complimentary session and tell him your story. He's there to listen. The toll-free number to call is 877-695-2102. That's 877-695-2102. 877-695-2102. Marko Mijuskovic. You're listening to Hawaii Money Resource with financial advisor Marko Mijuskovic. If you'd like to speak to Marko, either on the air or after the show, call toll-free from Oahu and the Outer Islands, 877-695-2102. That's 877-695-2102.
Welcome back. You're listening to Hawaii Money Resource. My name is Marko Mijuskovic, Senior Partner at Wealth Strategy Partners, also Certified Exit Planner, and you are listening to Hawaii Money Resource. Today we have a Business Exit Planning edition of Hawaii Money Resource, and we do have a Business Exit Planning Advisory Board with us in the studio. Let me introduce them again because we have all brain power right here in the studio with us today. Starting with Ethan Lee, Pacific Business Valuation. By the way, Ethan, people can find you at pacificbusinessvaluation.com. That's the website to kind of learn a little bit about your company, but also at 687-0309. That's a phone number. Then we have Charles Zhao, a managing partner of ECA LLP. It's a CPA firm. Charles, what's the best number to reach you guys?
Our general office number, 808-533-4244.
Sorry, I only had a cell phone. I don't think so it's appropriate to give out your cell phone number.
Appreciate it.
And last but not least, we have Scott Settlemeyer, a law firm. Scott, main number 540-2400, right?
Yes, thanks.
540-2400. Okay, perfect. So before the break, we were talking about, Scott was talking about the importance of sitting down and learning your option before you start building your business and not just rushing into it because you have a deal on the table and you want to close as soon as possible. So now we were thinking about just give you a little bit of example, a real life example. We're not going to be mentioning any names. We're not going to be talking about specifics, just in general. But the funny thing is, and maybe Ethan know more about the case, and what I understand, this was the case that you guys start working on after our last year workshop that we did in one of the local clubs, right? Not to disclose the name, right, Charles? And tell me, what was the deal?
We have Charles and I have a mutual client that they got into business. It was similar to what Scott described, how there's the urgency to just get going, right? The business is there. We need to start operating. And so the legal agreements can sometimes be an afterthought. Okay, yeah, we've got to get that formalized. We'll get the operating agreement. And anyway, these folks had attended one of our seminars, and afterward I had a follow-up conversation with them about the importance of the buy-sell agreement, and to do that now while things are going well and the business is thriving and there isn't any disputes or disagreement. And anyway, that to fast forward, that time has come and gone. And
you mean the honeymoon time?
The honeymoon period is gone, and now there's a bit of disagreement, and there is no buy-sell agreement, and so now unfortunately it's into litigation mode, and instead of paying for the oil change, they're now paying for the engine overhaul.
So what do you think was why even though they participate, they spend some time educating themselves what need to be done. Why they didn't do it?
I think it is. It's just the day-to-day. I mean, business owners are they're so buried in their work. They wear so many hats. They're the main operator. They're the president. They're the CEO. They've got their time demands are just crazy, and so they don't have time to do these things. But again, that's kind of the value proposition that we're sending out, is that come to us, we can help you, we can put the plan together, just come meet with us and we can make life a little bit easier and less stressful.
What do you think, Charles? Why is this happening? And this is just one of the many examples.
Yeah, I think Ethan's right. The misconception in this case for the majority owner, the founding member, was that he thought by having a controlling interest that he could in the end decide and make decisions on his own. What he came to find out was that he has a fiduciary responsibility to his partner, and while something may be very clear to him on what is fair and acceptable for his purpose, isn't necessarily how the law is going to go. And now, having not had put in place the necessary documents, they're having to litigate it.
So now, instead of spending a little bit of money creating all these operating agreements and buy and sell agreements, now they're going to be spending way more money on attorney fees, on litigations, and not to mention the absence of their presence in the work, in the business, and now they need to focus their mind on something else versus building the business. They need to kind of argue and figure out the way how they're going to get out. So this is just multiplying the effect of loss. How much money is actually lost because they didn't spend a little bit of time and money right up front. What do you think, Scott?
I think that's exactly right. I think folks need to think about business partnerships or joint ventures similar to a marriage where they really need to think through and you can take out the love or the emotion out of it a little bit more when with the business as opposed to a marriage, and you need to really think through, because at some point, unlike hopefully a marriage was going to last forever, a business does end. I mean, whether folks retire, folks quit, somebody passes away, or they decide that two partners decide to go their own ways. I think that is very, very likely, not 99% of the time was what's going to happen eventually, and so it really needs to be planned for.
One smart person just told me recently the business ends either by design or by default, right? So eventually that's what's going to happen on the end. Well, for folks out there that are not familiar with the Business Exit Planning Advisory Board, that was the sole purpose of creating this pretty much joint thing between Ethan, Charles, and Scott and myself a couple of years ago, just going around and spreading the words among the business owners about the importance of business exit planning. And one of the things that Ethan said earlier, they don't have time. And putting four of us in the room with all of our expertise will take that time and put it on our shoulders to help that business owners actually design and craft very well designed exit plan and prepare well ahead of a time for that exit. So if you're listening to Hawaii Money Resource and you are wondering where to go next, the best thing is to give us a call, 695-2102, 695-2102. If you have any questions, if you are a business owner and you're really stuck in a moment and you really don't know where to go, but you want to eventually get out of the business, give us a call. We'll be more than happy to talk to you and give you some recommendations and suggestions. Going back on the buy and sell agreement, it's many examples. I would say 90% of the people don't have custom built buy and sell agreement, and most of the time they're just using some of the buy and sell agreement that they borrow from the friend or they borrow from the internet or whatever. Buy and sell agreement itself doesn't need to be brain damaging earlier. It can be very well crafted in a short period of time. But where should that buy and sell agreement begin? Where should they start with the buy and sell agreement? Does it need to be separate from the operating agreement? Scott?
No, it doesn't. It can be incorporated. In fact, it often is incorporated into an operating agreement for an LLC. For a corporation, yeah, you'd have a separate shareholder buy-sell agreement. But they're very similar in terms, and it's great, again, to have it done up front. But also we shouldn't leave you with the impression that it can't be done later. I mean, oftentimes and many times the businesses will come and need this type of planning when they start to think about it. And again, as long as the partners are getting along relatively well, or even if they're not getting along so well, but they're at least speaking with each other, it's a better time to talk about these things, think through them, and negotiate them, as opposed to a time period where everybody is thrown off the gloves and there's a big fight.
Ethan, how much importance, when you evaluate the businesses, do you look at the buy and sell agreements, and do you incorporate that in valuation, or does it matter for you?
Yeah, no, it definitely matters. If there is a buy-sell agreement, which 95 or more % there isn't, but when there is, it's huge. I mean, that the language in the buy-sell agreement dictates often what we consider in the valuation. For example, we have one recently that was, a litigated one. It was the buy-sell agreement said there's this formula that will produce a price, and if you don't agree on that, then you get an independent business valuation expert to value the business, and if they don't agree on that one, you go get another one. Right. And so that's where we were at. There was 2 business valuation experts, but the wording in the buy-sell agreement was such that it prohibited consideration of any future earnings of the business. And in this case, it was sad because the business was very profitable, and all we could consider was basically the assets of the business, treated as if they were just going to sell the assets, but it was a professional service type business, so the assets were minimal. Computers.
Who suffers?
Well, in this case, it was a widow. The husband was a partner, and the widow wanted to get her husband's receive the buyout from her husband's ownership interest, and so she was, unfortunately, the one that was suffering in this case because of the poor wording, the poor, I guess, planning for the buy-sell agreement.
So let's say that's a case scenario, Scott. What is her options? Is she stuck just because of the poor wording of the buy and sell agreement?
She may very well be. I mean, Hawaii is a state that tends to honor people's contracts. So if the 2 owners originally agreed to that, that's likely what the court's going to enforce.
What about you, Charles? How much buy and sell agreements are important for you when you doing like a tax audits, or when you doing like a tax planning for them?
Well, we see it as an important planning tool, Marko, and to Scott's point, and having a contract that not just having a written contract, but having one that's been vetted with the various consultants and having everyone weigh in. So while it may have legal authority, does it make sense from a financial standpoint? Does it make sense from a valuation standpoint? I think it's important to have the various professionals, which is why we've built this team. And to your point, Marko, having everyone take their eyes and look at it from their technical expertise and weigh in gives a composite answer that serves the client in the optimal way.
Perfect. I appreciate your guys' input. We're going to take another break. You're listening Business Exit Planning, additional Hawaii Money Resource. Today's guests, actually our returning co-host, is Ethan Lee from Pacific Business Valuation. We have Charles Au from ECA LLP and Scott Sella from Sellemeyer Law Firm, business attorneys. My name is Marko Mijuskovic, Senior Partner of L Strategy Partners, also Certified Exit Planner. We're going to take our break, and once we come back from the break, we're going to talk a little bit more about intellectual property and goodwill. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
.760 KGU.
Part of the Wall Street Business Network.
Hands can do incredible things. They made every sound in this piece of music. But nothing compares to using them to help save a life. If an adult suddenly collapses, call 911, then push hard and fast in the center of their chest until help arrives. It's called hands-only CPR, and it's recommended by the American Heart Association. Visit handsonlycpr.org today. A message from the American Heart Association and the Ad Council.
Peter Herrick was a 34-year-old carpenter when he joined the Navy Reserve. Peter's wife, Diana.
They were deployed to build schools and bases and to assist the Marines.
When the mortar round hit, I was completely knocked out. I didn't wake up until 6 days later.
Paralyzed veteran, Senior National Service Officer Raymond Bruce.
I saw Pete when he was at his worst. He didn't know if he was going to live to be able to see his daughter graduate from high school.
Raymond knew that I needed help figuring out where do we go from here.
We not only represent the veteran, but we represent the whole family.
11 months we stayed in the hospital down in Tampa.
We advocate, we educate, and we process claims through the VA, and we follow that claim from the beginning to the end.
Without Paralyzed Veterans of America, I really honestly believe I'd still be in the hospital.
You can help our paralyzed veterans. To learn more, visit pva.org, a public service of Paralyzed Veterans of America.
How would you like to work in the world of finance? Wealth Strategy Partners is considering smart, motivated financial associates. You will have the potential to earn competitive earnings while providing a necessary service to the community. Furthermore, when you join Wealth Strategy Partners, you will be eligible to receive a full benefits package, including insurance, a pension plan, and more. If you enjoy working with people and have an interest in making a difference in people's lives, contact Wealth Strategy Partners, 695-2102. That's 695-2102. Make the call that could change your life. 695-2102. Join Wealth Strategy Partners, 695-2102. Registered representative and financial advisor of Park Avenue Securities, LLC, abbreviated PAS, 7 Hanover Square, New York, New York, 10004. Securities, products, or services and advisory services are offered through PAS, a registered broker-dealer and investment advisor, 888-600-4667. PAS is a member of FINRA SIPC.
You're listening to Hawaii Money Resource with financial advisor Marko Mijuskovic. If you'd like to speak to Marko, either on the air or after the show, call toll-free from Oahu and the outer islands, 877-695-2102. That's 877-695-2102.
Welcome back. You're listening to Hawaii Money Resource. My name is Marko Mijuskovic, Senior Partner at Wealth Strategy Partners, also Certified Exit Planner. Today we have a Business Exit Planning edition of Hawaii Money Resource, and we have our brain trust or brain power or Business Exit Planning Advisory Board with me in the studio. Ethan Lee from Pacific Business Valuation, Charles Zhao from ECA LLP, CPA firm, and we have a Scott Settle from Settlemeyer Attorneys firm. And myself, of course, exit planner, quarterback for you. If you have any questions, because we have all this brain power right here that can answer all of your questions, and you don't know what to do, you're kind of stuck with your business, you want to get out, maybe you're getting burned out, maybe you want to transfer internally to your management or your family members, but you don't know how, give us a call, 695-2102, 695-2102. It's very important for every professional in our Exit Planning Advisory Board to take a look at your situation and give you our input. Before the break, we were talking about buy and sell agreements, and we can talk about buy and sell agreements pretty much the whole show and probably not even cover everything, right? But I would like to take it a little bit further, and I would like to talk about, okay, I'm running the business, I have all these, processes and procedures, and I have all these brand names, and I have all these proprietary tools in my business. What should I do? How can I extract that out of the business, put it somewhere else, and maybe continue past the point of transferring that business or selling that business? So, Charles, let's start with you. What do you think about that?
Marko, we think it's a good planning opportunity. We believe that the different types, having our clients understand what makes them money, both regard to their actual active trader business as well as their intangible assets, things like their trade name, their formulas, and things like that. Understanding the difference and the value that they bring can create some tax opportunities. How you dispose of those assets, either the business and or the Goodwill, have different tax treatment.
What do you think about from your professional standpoint, like when you're dealing with the businesses and business owners, how many of them they actually go their route?
Marko, it's probably a minority of our businesses, probably less than a third of our clients look at their business and try to bifurcate their assets or their streams of income into its respective parts. For those that do, we find that if they're aggressive and they're able to quantify and bundle those assets in different ways, there's opportunities to move the assets into different entities, into different ownership structures, even into different states that have possibly the advantage of a lower tax rate environment.
What do you think about that, Scott, from the legal or from your point of view?
I think it's really important for owners to understand what's the composition of their business, not just the actual services or the goods they manufacture, but their name, their value, and their goodwill, their reputation, and any intellectual property. And some of it is comes to mind very easily, like if you have a patent or you have a trademark or a copyright or something like that. But also just if you have a secret way or a special way of doing things, you can put value to that and speak with your accountant and your business value advisor on how to do that. And typically, when you go to sell the business, the buyer is going to pay you a price based on your revenue, your income or your revenue, and doesn't really care that much about how you want to classify what they're paying for. You typically have some flexibility as a seller in classifying, and that's when it's really important to talk to Charles about, okay, if I sell an inventory or a hard asset, what's the tax effect of that versus if I'm selling an intellectual property or goodwill or something intangible? Is there a benefit to classifying a portion of the purchase price to pay that and save on some taxes?
So do you, Charles, going back to you again, do you see this additional planning opportunity, maybe even while the business is still operating and maybe not planning to sell yet?
Marko, the best time to structure things is before you need to do it, before you plan to do it. So,
and why is that?
Well, two things. If there's a business purpose, ideally you're doing things for business purposes, not just for tax savings. And so doing it ahead of time provides the support. That's why you're doing it. So that's the one. The other is doing it at a time when you've got a clear mind and you've got the time to plan for it. You can actually, once you split up the business into its component parts, you're actually able to build value. You can make certain business decisions to grow and support the different component parts depending on how you want to exit to maximize the tax savings.
Perfect. And then, of course, when it comes to valuation of the business, Ethan, how do you look at it in if the business owner is kind of broke apart the different pieces of the business, and let's say the goodwill, recipes, or whatever they have is in a separate corporation and maybe even in a different state, how do you approach that valuation?
Well, I think that's why we get engaged, is to help the owners break that apart, because oftentimes they don't know how to do that and what the intangible assets are worth. And so with goodwill, there's generally two types. There's what's called enterprise goodwill that stays with the business and would transfer with the business when it's sold. And there's also personal goodwill, which attaches to maybe the owner or a key employee. And that, personal goodwill can be reputation, it can be knowledge, it can be relationships, and those things can be transferred if you plan, and it takes time. And so 3 to 5 years usually, especially for a professional service practice where the owner has all the relationships, those can be transferred over time, as well as some of the knowledge to the person coming in. So in order to maximize full value for the business, planning needs to take place.
I know it's more complicated than it sounds, but Charles, how do you extract that value, let's say, from the current corporation, and after Ethan appraises, Ethan said the value of this goodwill is like X amount of dollars, how do you extract that and put it somewhere else? Because there is already a dollar value assigned to it.
Yeah, that's a good question, Marko. It depends on the business and the type of industry that they're in. I can share an example of a company here that they feel that they have a unique way of training their employees and their contractors and a way of marketing. So what they've done is they've actually built the documentation around that, both with regard to how they train their people and also how they go about their marketing and execute their business. And so what they did is they wrote the programs partly in the company for the ones that stayed there, but they also had some work that was actually done outside the company. So we took the work that was not the marketing piece especially, and moved that to a company that was based in Nevada. It just happened to be. And by building the structure, formalizing the structure there, we're able to build value that way.
So just let me clarify. So if you want to do something like that, you want to do it probably from the get-go, set it up to be owned by the separate entity from the scratch, not needed to extract it later on from the original company. Because there is a value transfer, right? So
That's right.
And you probably need to pay for that somehow, somewhere.
Yes. Everything needs to be at arm's length, at fair value. So the sooner you build it and document it before it takes on a life of its own and you begin to monetize that value, it's better to do it that way.
What do you think about that, Scott?
I think that's great. That's great planning, and that's really in-depth planning, and that's, I think, shows you the value of thinking ahead and talking to somebody like Charles, particularly when you have a business that has various component parts.
Does it need to be, Ethan, maybe question for you or question for Charles or Scott, does it need to be in kind of like in the same domain what your primary business is, or does not? Like, sounds like in this case what you said, Charles, this was completely something different. It was a marketing, it was a training, not even the primary business that they were doing in their original company, right?
And Marko, it's a service business, so the training they do, it does certainly perfect their key asset, which is their people. But again, it was separate and apart from the business, the actual execution of the service, yes.
Why did they do it in Nevada versus Hawaii?
A couple of reasons. Nevada has clearly no state income tax, so there was an advantage there. And the other was, in their view, in talking to their attorney, they believe that there was some liability protection afforded them in the Nevada setting.
Okay. Ethan, when they are praising the business and they have a separate entity that owns this, do you appraise the business in whole or separate it? You separate each entity and put the value on each entity.
Yeah, so I guess it would depend on the purpose of the valuation, but yeah, usually if it's in a separate entity, that's one business that would be valued, and the value is measured by the cash flow that it would be expected to produce.
When it comes to the sale, let's say down the road, and you get into the point, okay, you have a company A in Nevada, for example, that owns all the trade secrets and trademarks and everything, and now you have a corporation B that is, instead of Hawaii, that is a primary revenue generator. From your experience, what you find out, will the potential buyer, be okay by just buying the one that is revenue generating versus both? You see what I'm saying? Like, because a lot of time business owner would like to retain the one that is just collecting the royalties and fees from the original company versus selling them both. Because in the one that is generating royalties and fees, they don't need to do anything.
Yeah, so I think if the intellectual property that might be held in a separate entity is key to the operations of the operating entity, then I think it would probably be wise to sell both of them. Because if a buyer is just going to be buying one entity but doesn't have the benefit of any of the goodwill or intellectual property that's held in a separate entity, the business might not be
appealing that much.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, good. What do you think about that, Charles?
Yeah, Marko, the advantage to the seller of having it split provides them an opportunity to retain some value and possibly use it and to pass it on to their children, to their heirs. But I agree with Ethan's analysis that max value would be to sell it together, and many of our clients will do that. It just provides more options for them.
Is there any particular way how you would like to structure, how you can structure that? Maybe a question for you, Scott, how you can structure it so you can still retain that piece of the business and continue collecting the fees and royalties? Is there any way that people should be aware of it? I mean, of course, they need to come and see us first, but is there any way how you can do it so it's still sellable and you can still retain it?
Sure. I think maybe a situation comes to mind where the operating company is sold along with a limited term license to use the intellectual property for a period of time, allow the buyer of the business to get the benefit of their bargain, to be able to operate the business properly and an ability to use the intellectual property for a period of time at a known cost, and perhaps that intellectual property is so valuable that over time that license fee can go up, so that the original seller can still retain some value long term. And really, that's a question really for Ethan to figure out how to value that to the seller. But I think that's one way to do it is with a licensing arrangement.
Perfect. Why don't we take our last break for today? We have a business exit planning edition of Hawaii Money Resource. My name is Marko Mijuskovic. We have Ethan Lee, Pacific Business Valuation. You can find him online, pacificbusinessvaluation.com or 687-0309. We have Charles Zhao. Charles, what's the main line?
It's 533-4244.
And then we have Scott Settle from Settlemeyer Law Firm. The best number to reach Scott is 540-2400, 540-2400. If you are a business owner and you're stuck, you're looking to get out of the business, or just plan strategically with your current business, give us a call. We have all brain power right here on our disposal, 695-2102, 695-2102. My name is Marko Mijuskovic. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
.760 KGU.
Part of the Wall Street Business Network.
Hawaii's homeless keiki need your help. The directors of Project Hawaii are asking for your kukua to stop the cycle of homelessness. By doing so, children will less likely abuse drugs or alcohol, be a victim of domestic violence, and avoid incarceration. Some of these children have never lived in a real home. If this grabs your heart, then take action now and let's help. Go to projecthawaii.org and click on the donation button. Educational summer programs start soon. That's projecthawaii.org for all the information.
Achieving personal financial success can be complicated. Marko Mijuskovic can make it simpler. That's something very good to know in a world where the wrong financial decisions can be all too costly. Marko Mijuskovic, Vice President of Wealth Strategy Partners, has been helping people in Hawaii successfully organize and plan their finances for years. Marko uses an holistic approach to help you balance your current financial obligations as well as your future concerns. And he does this while keeping things simple. Organizing your finances is serious business, but it doesn't have to be complicated. Find out how Marko can help you make smart, informed decisions about your financial future. Call him and schedule your complimentary session and tell him your story. He's there to listen. The toll-free number to call is 877-695-2102. That's 877-695-2102. 877-695-2102. Marko Mijuskovic.
We all want to retire someday, but how will you afford it? Marko Mijuskovic here, financial advisor for Wealth Strategy Partners. Times are tough, but nothing brings comfort and security like having a financial strategy. Some financial strategies can be complicated. All those numbers and percentage points. It makes your head spin. But that's why I created an easier to understand system called Retirement Income Timeline. Let me analyze your situation using my retirement income timeline, and I'll show you how you may be able to turn your money worries of today into a stress-free retirement of tomorrow. It's easy. Just call me and I'll assist you. Get your personal retirement income timeline by me, Marko Mijuskovic, today. Call 695-2102, 695-2102.
Registered representative and financial advisor of Park Avenue Securities, LLC, abbreviated PAS, 7 Hanover Square, New York, 10004. Securities products or services and advisory services are offered through PAS, a registered broker-dealer and investment advisor. 888-600-4667. PAS is a member FINRA SIPC.
You're listening to Hawaii Money Resource with financial advisor Marko Mijuskovic. If you'd like to speak to Marko, either on the air or after the show, call toll-free from Oahu and the outer islands, 877-695-2102. That's 877-695-2102.
Welcome back. You're listening to Hawaii Money Resource. My name is Marko Mijuskovic, Senior Partner at Wealth Strategy Partners, also Certified Exit Planner. Today we have a special edition of Hawaii Money Resource. We have a Business Exit Planning edition of Hawaii Money Resource. And we have our Business Exit Planning Advisory Board with me in the studio. Ethan Lee, Pacific Business Valuation, Charles Au, ECA LLP, and Scott Settlemeyer Law Firm. Don't forget to check us online at businessexitplanninghawaii.com, businessexitplanninghawaii.com. That's the website that is solely dedicated for business owners and helping them to get out of the business. So if you are one of those business owners that pretty much gamble all their life on a business and exiting that business, give us a call, 695-2102, 695-2102. We cover a lot of good stuff in this edition of Hawaii Money Resource. We talk about buy and sell agreements on the beginning, importance of setting up the buy and sell agreements. We talked about intellectual property, or we talk about a goodwill, personal versus enterprise goodwill. We talk about a little bit about tax planning and pushing the maybe your processes and procedure and marketing in some different states for tax planning and business planning primarily. Let's talk about importance of team. We have like 4 or 5 minutes left, and the whole purpose of setting up the Business Exit Planning Advisory Board was actually realizing that people are going to the multiple advisors, and they're kind of like bouncing in like from one person to another person, and that there is no team behind it. And going to the one team that is handling the business valuation, tax planning, legal audits, quarterbacking the whole deal, making sure that all the steps are covered, it's a huge advantage. So from the valuation point of view, or tax or legal, give me your input. Ethan.
Yeah, well, I was actually in a client meeting in your office with a client of your firm's. And in that meeting, it was great. It was a team. They had their longtime tax preparer, they had their longtime attorney, they had their banker, I was there, and then they had their financial planner. The whole team was there, and they're doing a family transfer where the mom is transferring 100% of the stock to 3 different children. And we all were able to talk about the plan, and it's a 5-year plan, and it's wonderful because they're on board. They understand that now the dynamic is going to change with the ownership going to the 3 different children, and we talked a lot about that, and we talked about the importance of a buy-sell agreement. Their homework was to go home and have dinner and talk about what their vision is for the long term and how they see their role in the business. And and it's great. And so we're going to follow up in a couple weeks. They're going to have, some documents drafted, and everything's going to be hopefully smooth
sailing.
Yeah,
right?
It was just the picture perfect. I walked out with a Kool-Aid grin, and it was great.
What do you think about that, Charles? What do you think about a team approach?
Well, I love Ethan's Kool-Aid grin. I
it's
agree.
Actually, he really literally walked away.
Well, for each of us, and when we look at our respective industries that we service, when you look at trying to maximize the tax advantage, it doesn't necessarily serve you from a valuation or from a contract execution standpoint. So what we find needs to happen when we work with our clients is you're going to have an answer that is somewhere in the middle. So we want something that's going to be livable for the family. It's going to provide the right financial result for the seller. It's going to have a good tax result to minimize the tax costs, and very importantly, that from a legal standpoint, it's something that we can reasonably execute. So we think a composite result is the answer.
Scott.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. Team is so important. Each one of us has tried to help clients with business exit planning. Doing it just by ourselves is really not doable without the component parts of a wealth planner and a CPA and a business value advisor. So, that's kind of why we came together and formed this team. And for folks who don't have those component parts or many of them, that's why we're here to help.
It's perfect. You were listening another great show. If you miss our show today by any chance, podcast will be up shortly. We're going to start advertising on a YouTube as well. So we have a little camera recording the whole deal right now so you can see our faces. Other than that, I appreciate you guys coming together. I know you guys are busy, especially around this time when everybody's stressing out when it comes to value or legal agreements or taxes. I appreciate your time coming together today and recording this show. It was awesome. Like I said earlier, wealth of knowledge. If you're a business owner stressing out there, 695-2102, 695-2102 is the number to call, and you will get your questions answered. Other than that, Ethan Lee, Pacific Business Valuation, Charles Au, ECA LLP, and Scott Settlemeyer Law Firm. Thank you guys for being guests at Hawaii Money Resource.
Thanks, Marko.
Thank you.
Perfect. My name is Marko Mijuskovic, Senior Partner at Wealth Strategy Partners, also Certified Exit Planner. Don't change the channel. We'll be right back.
The Living Balance Sheet and the Living Balance Sheet logo are registered service marks of the Guardian Life Insurance Company of America, New York, New York. The graphics and text used herein are the exclusive property of Guardian and protected under U.S. and international copyright laws. Copyright 2005 to 2011. The Guardian Life Insurance Company of America. This show is for informational purposes only. Individual risk tolerance and investment objectives must be reviewed prior to making any specific recommendations. Marko Mijuskovic is a registered representative and financial advisor for Park Avenue Securities, LLC, 7 Hanover Square, New York, New York, 10004. Securities products, services, and advisory services are offered through Park Avenue Securities, a registered broker-dealer and investment advisor. 888-600-4667. Financial representative, the Guardian Life Insurance Company of America, New York, New York. Park Avenue Securities is an indirect, wholly owned subsidiary of the Guardian Life Insurance Company of America. Wealth Strategy Partners is not an affiliate or subsidiary of Park Avenue Securities or the Guardian Life Insurance Company of America. Park Avenue Securities is a member FINRA SIPC.